First Contact and Culinary Curiosity. The sleek, silver spacecraft descended through Earth's atmosphere, its smooth surface reflecting the golden hues of the setting sun. Inside, Ambassador Zix Era of the Galactic Confederation nervously adjusted her translucent exoskeleton, her four eyes blinking rapidly in anticipation. This was to be the first official diplomatic contact between Earth and the wider galactic community, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Approaching the designated landing zone, chirped the ship's eye. Atmospheric composition within acceptable parameters. Local fauna detected, but no immediate threats identified. Zixera's assistant, Krell, a bulbous being with tentacle-like appendages, burbled anxiously. "Ambassador, are you certain about this? The reports about the humans are concerning." "We must keep an open mind, Krell," Zixera replied, her voice calm despite her inner turmoil. "Remember, they've achieved faster-than-light travel in a fraction of the time it took our species. There must be something remarkable about them." As the ship touched down on the manicured lawn of the United Nations headquarters in New York, a welcoming committee of human dignitaries stood ready. At their head was Dr. Samantha Chen, Earth's newly appointed interstellar relations officer. The ship's doors hissed open, and Zixera emerged, followed closely by Krell and a small contingent of other alien diplomats. The humans gasped audibly at the sight of the diverse alien forms, but quickly composed themselves. Dr. Chen stepped forward, a warm smile on her face. "Ambassador Zixera, on behalf of the people of Earth, welcome to our world. We are honored to host you and your delegation." Zixera extended a delicate crystalline appendage in greeting. "The honor is ours, Dr. Chen. We look forward to learning about your fascinating species and forging a lasting alliance." As the two leaders shook hands, or the nearest equivalent, photographers captured the historic moment. Flashes erupted from cameras, causing several of the alien diplomats to recoil in alarm. "My apologies," Dr. Chen said quickly. "We should have warned you about our imaging devices. Please, let's move inside where it's more comfortable." The delegation was led into a grand hall, where tables were laden with an array of Earth's finest cuisines. The aliens looked at the spread with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "We've prepared a banquet to showcase some of Earth's most beloved dishes," Dr. Chen explained. "We hope you'll find something to your liking." Zixera approached the tables, her sensory organs working overtime to process the myriad of unfamiliar scents. She gestured towards a platter of sushi. "And what might this be?" "Ah, that's sushi," Dr. Chen replied. "It's raw fish, wrapped in seaweed and rice. It's a delicacy from a region of Earth called Japan." The alien delegation recoiled in unison. Krell's tentacles writhed in distress. "Raw animal flesh? Surely you jest. The bacterial load alone would be catastrophic." Dr. Chen blinked in surprise. "Oh, I assure you, it's quite safe. In fact, many humans consider it a healthy food choice." Zixera's exoskeleton paled slightly. "I see. And what of this?" She pointed to a steaming cup of dark liquid. "That's coffee," a nearby human diplomat chimed in. "It's a beverage we often drink in the morning or when we need to stay alert. Would you like to try some?" Before Zixera could respond, Krell had already scanned the liquid with a handheld device. His eyes widened in alarm. "Ambassador, this beverage contains high levels of caffeine. It's a known neurotoxin." The human diplomats exchanged confused glances. Dr. Chen cleared her throat. "While it's true that caffeine is technically a neurotoxin, it's harmless to humans in the quantities we consume. In fact, many of us rely on it daily." The alien delegation huddled together, whispering urgently among themselves. Zixera turned back to Dr. Chen, her voice tinged with concern. "Dr. Chen, I must ask, do humans regularly consume substances that would be considered poisonous to other species?" Dr. Chen paused, considering her words carefully. "Well, I suppose from a certain perspective, yes. Many of our foods and drinks contain compounds that might be harmful in large quantities or to different physiologies. But through evolution and adaptation, these substances are not only safe for us, but often beneficial or enjoyable. The aliens fell silent. Their expressions were visible, a mix of horror and fascination. Zixara's mind raced, trying to reconcile this information with everything she thought she knew about sapient species and survival. Perhaps, she said slowly, we should discuss this further. It seems there is much more to learn about humans than we anticipated. Dr. Chen nodded, a glimmer of excitement in her eyes. Of course, Ambassador. In fact, I believe this could be the beginning of a fascinating cultural exchange. Your reaction to our food has made me equally curious about your own dietary habits and evolutionary history. As the human and alien diplomats began to mingle, an air of cautious curiosity replaced the initial tension. Humans eagerly explained their various dishes, while the aliens asked increasingly specific questions about Earth's biochemistry and ecology. Krell sidled up to Zixara, still eyeing the banquet tables warily. Ambassador, he whispered, do you think it's possible we've underestimated the humans? To not only survive but thrive in an environment full of potential toxins. Zixara's eyes glimmered with a new respect as she watched Dr. Chen enthusiastically describe the fermentation process of cheese to a group of bewildered aliens. Indeed, Krell, I believe we may have stumbled upon one of humanity's greatest strengths. Their adaptability is remarkable. As the evening wore on, it became clear that this first contact was not going quite as anyone had expected. But in the confusion and culture shock, seeds of mutual fascination were being sown. Humanity's relationship with their seemingly toxic world was about to open doors to the galaxy that no one could have predicted. The Great Taste Test. The following day, tension hung in the air of the United Nations conference room. Human diplomats sat on one side of a long table, the alien delegation on the other. Between them lay an array of Earth foods, each item a potential minefield of misunderstanding. Dr. Samantha Chen cleared her throat. Ambassador Zixara, we appreciate your willingness to engage in this culinary exchange. We believe it's crucial for fostering mutual understanding. Zixara's exoskeleton shimmered with a mix of anxiety and curiosity. We concur, Dr. Chen. Though I must admit, our xenobiologists are still struggling to comprehend how your species has survived, let alone thrived, consuming these substances. A young human diplomat, Jake Martins, spoke up. With all due respect, Ambassador, we could say the same about your ability to survive in space. Different evolutionary paths lead to different adaptations. Krell burbled nervously. But surely, intentionally ingesting toxins goes beyond mere adaptation. Dr. Chen smiled. Perhaps it's best if we demonstrate. We've prepared small, safe samples of various foods and drinks. Would you be willing to try them? The alien delegation exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, Zixara nodded. In the spirit of diplomacy, we will proceed. However, we insist on scanning each item first. Of course, Dr. Chen agreed. Let's start with something simple. This is an apple, a common fruit. Krell scanned the slice of apple, his tentacles twitching. It contains malic acid and glucose. Jake grinned. Yep, gives it that tart sweetness. Perfectly safe, I promise. Hesitantly, Zixara extended a delicate appendage and touched the apple slice to her sensory organs. Her eyes widened. It's pleasant, refreshing, even. Encouraged, the humans presented more items. A piece of dark chocolate, a sip of red wine, a morsel of blue cheese. Each was met with initial trepidation, followed by surprise and often delight. This chocolate contains theobromine, Krell noted, a cardiac stimulant. And a mood enhancer, Jake added with a wink. Makes us happy. Zixara sampled the chocolate, her exoskeleton flushing with an iridescent glow. Fascinating. The complex flavor profile, the texture, It's unlike anything in our nutritional programs. As the tasting continued, the aliens grew more adventurous. They marveled at the burn of chili peppers, the effervescence of carbonated drinks, and the umami of fermented foods. "But why?" asked one of the alien diplomats, a gelatinous being named Blort. "Why consume substances that caused physical reactions like this spiciness or this caffeine rush?" Dr. Chen considered the question. "It's part of our human experience. We don't just eat for sustenance. We eat for pleasure, for social bonding, for cultural identity. These flavors and sensations connect us to our history, our planet, and each other." Zixera's eyes glimmered with understanding. "So these foods are not just about nutrition, but about feeling alive." "Exactly," Jake exclaimed. "Life on Earth has always been a bit dangerous. Maybe that's why we've learned to find joy in small risks, even in our food." As the tasting session progressed, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The aliens, initially apprehensive, became eager to try each new item. They compared notes, debated flavors, and even began suggesting combinations. "I believe the wasabi would pair interestingly with the blue cheese," Krell suggested, to the amusement and horror of the human diplomats. Dr. Chen watched in amazement as Zixera voluntarily reached for a second piece of dark chocolate. "Ambassador, it seems you've developed a taste for our food." Zixera's exoskeleton rippled with embarrassment. "I must admit, the sensation is intoxicating. The interplay of flavors, the physical reactions, it's opening new neural pathways I never knew existed." Blort oozed closer to the table. "I have a query. Given the vast array of potential toxins in your environment, how do humans determine what is safe to consume?" Jake laughed. "Well, historically, trial and error. A lot of error, but we've gotten pretty good at it over the millennia." Dr. Chen nodded. "Our ancestors learned to detoxify certain foods through preparation methods. Cooking, fermentation, and other techniques allowed us to access nutrients and flavors that would otherwise be harmful." Zixera's eyes widened. "So your cuisine is not just sustenance or pleasure, but a testament to your species' ingenuity and resilience." "I suppose it is," Dr. Chen replied, seeing their food culture in a new light. "Every dish tells a story of survival, adaptation, and creativity." As the session wound down, the alien diplomats were noticeably more relaxed. Some were even requesting second helpings of their favorite discoveries. Krell, who had been meticulously recording every reaction, turned to Zixera. "Ambassador, these findings are unprecedented. The human's ability to not only tolerate but enjoy such a wide range of chemical compounds could revolutionize our understanding of xenobiology." Zixera nodded, her exoskeleton still glowing from the chocolate. "Indeed, Krell. I believe we've only scratched the surface of human adaptability. This culinary adventure has opened my eyes to possibilities I never imagined." Dr. Chen and Jake exchanged excited glances. The cultural exchange was going better than they could have hoped. "Ambassador Zixera," Dr. Chen said, "we're honored by your openness to our cuisine. Would you be interested in learning more about our food preparation techniques? Perhaps we could even attempt to create dishes that bridge our biological differences." Zixera's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "Dr. Chen, nothing would please me more. And perhaps you would be interested in sampling some of our galactic cuisines as well." Jake couldn't contain his excitement. "You mean we get to try alien food too? Count me in." As the human and alien diplomats chatted animatedly about future culinary exchanges, it became clear that food had accomplished what years of formal negotiations might have struggled to achieve. It had created a bond of shared experience and mutual fascination. In the universal language of flavor, humanity had found an unexpected bridge to the stars. And for the aliens, Earth's poisonous delicacies were quickly becoming the galaxy's most intriguing new frontier, unveiling the galactic gourmet scene. 6 months after the groundbreaking first contact, Dr. Samantha Chen, and Jake Martinez found themselves aboard the Galactic Confederation's flagship, hurtling through hyperspace towards Zixera's homeworld, Crystalia. They were part of the first human delegation invited to visit an alien planet, and anticipation crackled through the ship like static electricity. "I still can't believe we're here," Jake whispered, his face pressed against a viewport, watching streaks of light flash by. "I mean, we're in space, on an alien ship, heading to an alien world." Dr. Chen smiled at his enthusiasm, and all because we introduced them to spicy food. Who would have thought? Their reverie was interrupted by the ship's eye. "Attention passengers, we are approaching Crystalia. Please prepare for deceleration and atmospheric entry." As the ship dropped out of hyperspace, a breathtaking vista filled the viewports. Crystalia was a world of prismatic beauty, its surface covered in vast, geometric crystal formations that refracted the light of its binary suns into a dazzling rainbow. Ambassador Zixera glided into the observation deck, her exoskeleton shimmering with excitement. "Welcome to my homeworld, friends. I hope you'll find it as beautiful as we find your Earth." The ship descended through layers of iridescent clouds, finally touching down in a docking bay that looked like it was carved from a single massive diamond. As the human delegation disembarked, they were greeted by a welcoming committee of various alien species, all eyes, or sensory organs, fixed curiously on the newcomers. On behalf of the Galactic Confederation, Zixera announced, "I welcome our human friends to Crystalia. May this visit mark the beginning of a new era of interstellar cooperation and cultural exchange." The following days were a whirlwind of diplomatic meetings, technological demonstrations, and cultural presentations. But for Dr. Chen and Jake, the most anticipated event was yet to come, the grand banquet showcasing the finest cuisines from across the galaxy. As they entered the banquet hall, a vast chamber with walls that seemed to be made of living crystal, Jake's jaw dropped. "Holy guacamole," he breathed. Spread before them were dozens of tables, each laden with foods from different worlds. Some dishes pulsed with bioluminescence, others levitated above their plates, and still others seemed to shift and change color as they watched. Krell, now serving as their guide, gestured towards the nearest table. "We've prepared a selection of Crystallian delicacies for you to sample. I must warn you, our nutritional needs are quite different from yours, so please consult your xenobiologists before trying anything." Dr. Chen approached the table, her scientific curiosity piqued. The food looked more like geometric sculptures than anything edible. She picked up what appeared to be a perfectly formed dodecahedron, its surface a swirling mix of pastel colors. "This is a nutrient cluster," Krell explained. "It contains all the minerals and energy sources an adult Crystallian needs for a full day." Jake sniffed the cluster cautiously. "It doesn't smell like, well, anything. Is it flavored?" Zixera tilted her head in confusion. "Flavored? I'm not familiar with this concept in relation to nutrition." Dr. Chen and Jake exchanged glances. "You mean, all your food is like this? Purely functional?" Dr. Chen asked. "Of course," Zixera replied. "Isn't that the purpose of sustenance? To provide optimal nutrition with maximum efficiency?" Jake looked crestfallen. "But what about enjoyment? Variety? The pleasure of trying new tastes?" The alien diplomat seemed puzzled by this line of questioning. Blort, the gelatinous being they had met on Earth, oozed forward. "Are you suggesting that the purpose of consuming sustenance goes beyond mere biological necessity?" Dr. Chen nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. On Earth, food is a central part of our cultures. We have countless cuisines, each with its own unique flavors, textures, and preparation methods. Eating isn't just about nutrition. It's an experience, a way to connect with others and explore new sensations." The aliens listened with rapt attention, their expressions, where discernible, a mix of confusion and fascination. Jake, seeing an opportunity, grinned. "You know what? I think it's time we introduced you to the art of cooking." Over the next few hours, in a scene that would have been unthinkable just months ago, human diplomats found themselves giving an impromptu cooking lesson to some of the galaxy's most powerful beings. Using supplies they had brought from Earth and some alien ingredients that seemed promising, they set about creating a multi-course meal. Dr. Chen demonstrated the art of sautéing, the sizzle and aroma of garlic and herbs filling the air. Jake enthusiastically explained the concept of spices, showing how a pinch of this or a dash of that could transform a dish. The aliens watched in amazement as simple ingredients were combined and transformed through heat and technique into something entirely new. When the first dish was ready, a simple pasta with a garlic and herb sauce, the room fell silent as Zixera took the first bite. Her exoskeleton flared with a brilliant light, her eyes widening in shock. This is incredible. The complexity, the interplay of flavors, the textures. I had no idea sustenance could be like this. Encouraged, the other aliens began to sample the human-made dishes. The reaction was universal. Shock, followed by delight, followed by an eagerness for more. Blort, after tasting a spicy curry, quivered with excitement. The sensation. It's like a supernova in my absorption membranes. Uncomfortable, yet I want more. As news of the impromptu cooking demonstration spread, more and more aliens flocked to the banquet hall. Soon, the planned formal dinner had transformed into a lively, interactive cooking class, with humans and aliens working side by side to create new dishes. Dr. Chen watched in amazement as a group of crystallians attempted to caramelize sugar, their precise, logical minds struggling to understand the chaotic process of cooking. Meanwhile, Jake was deep in conversation with a group of gaseous beings, trying to figure out how to create a dish they could taste through absorption. As the night wore on, the atmosphere in the banquet hall had completely transformed. The initial formality had given way to a buzzing excitement, with laughter and exclamations of surprise echoing through the crystalline chamber. Zixera approached Dr. Chen, her exoskeleton still glowing from the array of new tastes. Dr. Chen, I must thank you. You've opened our eyes to an entirely new dimension of existence. The idea that sustenance can be a source of pleasure, creativity, and social bonding. It's revolutionary. Dr. Chen smiled warmly. That's the beauty of cultural exchange, Ambassador. We all have something unique to offer, something that can enrich each other's lives in unexpected ways. As they looked out over the scene, aliens of all shapes and sizes enthusiastically trying their hand at cooking, sharing their creations, and reveling in new flavors, both human and alien felt a sense of profound optimism. In introducing the galaxy to the simple pleasures of cooking and eating, humanity had unknowingly sparked a culinary revolution that would reshape interstellar relations in ways no one could have predicted. The galactic gourmet scene was about to explode, and Earth was at the center of it all. The spice must flow. One standard galactic year had passed since the humans' visit to Crystalia, and the ripple effects of that fateful cooking demonstration were still spreading across the cosmos. Dr. Samantha Chen stood at the viewport of the newly christened Earth Embassy on Galaxis Prime, the bustling capital world of the Galactic Confederation. She watched as ships of all shapes and sizes zipped through the technicolor sky, many of them bearing the unmistakable logo of Earth-based spice trading companies. A holographic display flickered to life beside her, showing the latest galactic economic reports. Earth spices, once unknown beyond their home planet, now accounted for a staggering 15% of all interstellar trade. Saffron had become more valuable than dilithium crystals, and there was a thriving black market for habanero peppers in the Andromeda sector. Jake Martinez burst into the office, his eyes wild with excitement. "Sam, you're not going to believe this. The Zorlacs of Nebula X9 have just declared capsaicin a religious sacrament." Dr. Chen chuckled, shaking her head in disbelief. And to think, a year ago they didn't even have a concept of flavor. How quickly things change. Their conversation was interrupted by a priority communication alert. The holographic display shifted to show the face of Ambassador Zixara, her exoskeleton shimmering with barely contained excitement. Dr. Chen, Jake, wonderful news. The Galactic Culinary Academy has just approved Earth's application. You're officially invited to establish the first extraterrestrial campus on Galaxis Prime. Jake pumped his fist in the air. Yes, culinary diplomacy for the win. But as they celebrated this latest victory, a shadow fell across Zixara's face. However, I'm afraid it's not all good news. There's growing concern among some members of the Confederation about Earth's rapid rise to prominence in the galactic community. Dr. Chen's brow furrowed. What kind of concerns? Zixara's exoskeleton rippled with unease. Some species are worried about the physiological effects of Earth cuisines on their populations. There have been reports of addiction-like behaviors, particularly towards sugar and spicy foods. Others are concerned about the cultural impact, fearing that their traditional nutrient consumption methods will be lost. Jake scoffed. That's ridiculous. We're not forcing anyone to eat our food. It's all voluntary. I understand, Zixara said, her tone placating. But you must understand, for many species, the idea of consuming substances for pleasure is entirely new. It's causing quite a stir in conservative circles. Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. We'll need to tread carefully. Perhaps we should establish some guidelines for responsible spice trade and cultural exchange. As if on cue, another alert chimed. This time, it was a news broadcast from a planet in the Outer Rim. The scene showed a group of alien protesters outside a newly opened Earth cuisine restaurant. Their signs, translated into multiple languages, read, "Say no to flavor colonization," and "Protect our nutrient heritage." Jake groaned. Great food has become a political issue. As if we didn't have enough of that back on Earth. Dr. Chen placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. It was bound to happen. We're not just changing diets, we're changing cultures. That's always going to ruffle some feathers, or tentacles, as the case may be. Over the next few weeks, the situation continued to escalate. Reports came in from across the galaxy of both the positive and negative impacts of Earth's culinary influence. On the planet Aquarius VI, a water world inhabited by a species of sentient coral, the introduction of seaweed-based Earth dishes had revolutionized their entire society. The Aquarians, who had previously relied solely on absorbing nutrients from the water around them, were experiencing taste for the first time. It had sparked a renaissance in their arts and sciences as they sought new ways to explore and express these novel sensations. Conversely, on the gas giant Nimbus, a faction of the cloud-dwelling Aerones had started a movement to ban all solid foods. They argued that the introduction of Earth cuisines was tempting their youth away from their traditional gas-based nutrient extraction methods, threatening the very fabric of their society. The Galactic Confederation was in turmoil, with heated debates raging in the Grand Assembly. Some members called for strict regulations on Earth foods and spices, while others advocated for complete free trade. In the midst of this chaos, Dr. Chen and Jake found themselves working around the clock, meeting with diplomats, scientists, and cultural attaches from hundreds of worlds. They organized seminars on responsible flavor exploration, worked with xenobiologists to ensure the safety of Earth foods for different species, and even helped establish rehabilitation programs for aliens who had developed unhealthy obsessions with certain Earth delicacies. One particularly memorable incident involved a group of silicon-based life forms who had become addicted to munching on charcoal briquettes after misunderstanding the concept of a barbecue. It took weeks of careful diplomacy and a crash course in the difference between silicon and carbon-based nutritional needs to resolve the situation. Despite the challenges, the cultural exchange continued to flourish in unexpected ways. Fusion cuisines began to emerge, blending Earth flavors with alien ingredients and preparation methods. A Jovian chef made headlines with his zero-gravity soufflé, while a human crystalline collaboration produced a line of gem-like candies that sang when you ate them. As Dr. Chen and Jake worked tirelessly to navigate this new and chaotic culinary landscape, they couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity, the newcomers to the galactic stage, had managed to turn their planetary quirk, their love of potentially dangerous flavors, into a force that was reshaping interstellar society. "You know," Jake said one day, as they watched a group of tentacled aliens enthusiastically debating the merits of different hot sauces, "I never thought I'd say this, but it looks like humanity's superpower is our taste buds." Dr. Chen laughed. "That and our stubborn insistence on finding joy in the little things, even if those little things might technically be poisonous." As they turned back to their work, both humans felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just diplomats or scientists. They were culinary ambassadors, helping to forge a new understanding between species one bite at a time. The galaxy was changing, propelled forward by the unexpected catalyst of human cuisine. And while the path forward was uncertain, one thing was clear: the spice must flow, and with it, a new era of galactic cooperation and cultural exchange. A new galactic order. 5 years had passed since humanity's culinary practices had rocked the foundations of galactic society. The initial shock had given way to a new equilibrium, albeit one that was still evolving at a dizzying pace. Dr. Samantha Chen, now the Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Confederation, stood before the assembled delegates in the Grand Assembly Chamber on Galaxis Prime. The chamber was a marvel of Tsan architecture, designed to accommodate species of all shapes, sizes, and atmospheric requirements. Crystalline beings floated alongside gaseous entities, while aquatic species bobbed in specially designed hover tanks. And there, in the center of it all, stood a human, a sight that no longer drew stares of bewilderment, but looks of respect and curiosity. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Confederation," Dr. Chen began, her voice echoing through the chamber and translated simultaneously into hundreds of languages and communication formats. "We stand at a crossroads in our shared history. 5 years ago, we humans were newcomers to this vast galactic community. Today, we gather to discuss the ratification of the Culinary Cooperation and Cultural Preservation Accord." A murmur rippled through the assembly. This accord had been years in the making, a delicate balance between embracing new experiences and preserving ancient traditions. "This accord," Dr. Chen continued, "represents more than just guidelines for food trade and cultural exchange. It symbolizes our capacity as a galactic community to adapt, to find common ground, and to turn potential conflicts into opportunities for growth." As she spoke, holographic displays flickered to life around the chamber, showcasing the transformations of the past 5 years. Images of the first intergalactic culinary Olympics flashed by, showing chefs of various species competing side by side, creating dishes that defied traditional notions of food. There was the memorable molten rock soufflé prepared by a silicon-based lifeform, which had won over even the most skeptical carbon-based judges. Another display showed the bustling spice markets of New Marrakesh, a space station that had become the hub of galactic cuisine. Aliens of all descriptions haggled over saffron and star anise, while vat-grown meat cultivated to cater to a myriad of dietary needs was sold alongside traditional Earth vegetables, modified to grow in zero-G. "We've seen the rise of new art forms," Dr. Chen said, gesturing to an image of a Zorlak artist creating intricate sculptures from spices, the structures changing color and shape as they reacted to different atmospheres. "We've witnessed breakthroughs in xenobiology and medicine, as our diverse approaches to consumption have led to new understandings of how different species process nutrients and chemicals." The next image showed a team of human and alien scientists in a lab, studying the pain-suppressing properties of capsaicin and how they might be applied to species across the galaxy. But perhaps most importantly, Dr. Chen's voice softened, filled with emotion. "We formed bonds of friendship and understanding that transcend our biological differences." The final hologram displayed a scene from the previous year's Galactic Fellowship Day. It showed beings from across the cosmos sharing a meal together, each consuming what was appropriate for their species, but all united in the social act of dining. Jake Martinez, now the head of the Galactic Culinary Academy, stepped forward to join Dr. Chen. What started as a shock, the realization that humans consume substances that could be lethal to other species, has led us to a deeper appreciation of our diversity, he added. We've learned that what's poison to one might be pleasure to another. And that's not just true for food, but for ideas, for ways of life. Zix Era, her exoskeleton shimmering with iridescent patterns that denoted deep emotion in her species, rose to speak. When we first encountered humans, we thought their consumption habits were a sign of madness or desperation. We could not fathom why a species would willingly ingest toxins and call it a delicacy. She paused, her compound eyes scanning the assembly. But we've come to understand that this very trait, the ability to find joy and sustenance in what others might fear, is emblematic of humanity's greatest strength, their adaptability. Lord, the gelatinous being who had once recoiled at the idea of spicy food, oozed forward. Humans have taught us that growth often comes from embracing the uncomfortable, from pushing beyond our preconceived limitations. Their influence has sparked a renaissance of culinary and cultural exploration across the galaxy. As the delegates spoke, more and more members of the assembly signaled their agreement. Species that had once been at odds over culinary traditions now found themselves nodding in unity. Dr. Chen felt a swell of pride as she watched the proceedings. The path hadn't been easy. There had been mishaps and misunderstandings along the way. The infamous garlic incident in the methane swamps of Novus IV had nearly sparked an interstellar incident. The debate over whether synthesized flavors could truly capture the essence of traditional cuisines had raged for months. But through it all, the spirit of curiosity and cooperation had prevailed. Humanity's openness to new experiences had proven contagious, inspiring other species to explore beyond their comfort zones. And in return, humans had learned the value of mindfulness and balance from cultures with more restrained culinary traditions. As the final votes were tallied and the Culinary Cooperation and Cultural Preservation Accord was ratified, a cheer went up across the assembly chamber. It was a cheer that transcended language and biology, a shared expression of joy and hope for the future. In that moment, Dr. Chen realized that humanity had found its place in the cosmos. They were no longer just the strange newcomers with bizarre eating habits. They had become a catalyst for change, a bridge between worlds, their adaptability and curiosity helping to forge a more interconnected and understanding galactic community. As the assembly adjourned and delegates began to mingle, Dr. Chen overheard snippets of conversation that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Have you tried the new Earthling restaurant that opened in the Gamma sector? Their sushi is to die for. I've signed up for a class on molecular gastronomy. Can you believe we never thought to alter the structure of our nutrients before? My younglings are learning about Earth spices in their xenobiology classes. They're fascinated by the concept of acquired tastes. Jake sidled up to Dr. Chen, a grin on his face. Well, Ambassador, it looks like we've officially gone from those crazy humans who eat poison to the species that brought flavor to the galaxy. Dr. Chen laughed, shaking her head in amazement. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? From that first shocked reaction to our sushi to this. She gestured at the diverse beings mingling around them, many sampling an array of foods that would have been unthinkable a few years ago. As they stood there, watching the dawn of a new era in galactic relations, both humans felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had taken one of humanity's quirks, their ability to find delicacy in potential danger, and turned it into a force for unity and understanding across the cosmos. The universe, it seemed, had developed a taste for humanity's unique flavor. And as for humans, well, they were just getting started on their greatest adventure yet, introducing the galaxy to the joy of a good meal, one potentially poisonous delicacy at a time.